Stop doing stupid things. Stop lying. Stop making things worse. Stop making yourself weak. You know, everyone does that. They know it, you know. And I'm not saying follow the rules. I'm not saying that. I'm saying even in a day, you'll see that you have choices in front of you, and sometimes you don't know what to do. It's okay, you're ignorant. Maybe you make a mistake. Whatever. That's just ignorance. Malevolence is when you know what you shouldn't do, and you do it anyways. And people do that all the time, and that's arrogance. That's, I'll get away with it, it's okay.
What's up? It's Hungry Millennial back again with yet another Proactive Pragmatism. On today's Proactive Pragmatism, I'd like to talk to you guys about Rule 6 of Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life. And Rule 6 is about setting your house in order. So the actual rule is set your house in order before criticizing others. And I know it sounds like don't judge others, get your things together. But for me, it's been deeper than that. I look at this from a state of leadership relationships, personal relationships, and self. And the reason why I think it's so important and so valuable to set your house in order before criticizing others is because it can help you eliminate the resentment in your life. It can help eliminate contempt. It can help eliminate spitefulness. For instance, here's a situation. When I first started working for FedEx, I used to get upset about the things that I couldn't change. It used to breed bitterness inside of me. I used to be so bitter. I would be like, forget these packages. It's too many packages. This sucks. The vehicle, the mode of transportation that I'm using to deliver these packages suck. So this job sucks. And then you go, well, I'm not getting paid enough for this. And then it just spirals out of control. And I've seen this take other drivers and other people who mean well, who need to pay bills, who need to feed their families, who are behind on bills, who are behind on rent, who are struggling in life and really need that job and that opportunity, go down a rabbit hole where they blame everybody else except themselves. And then the world kind of flips on its axis a little bit, especially in my case. So in my case, I had to ask myself, dang, are you getting up on time? I had to ask myself, how can I make this situation better before I start pointing fingers at everybody else? Because there are things that I can control and things that I can't control. And I had to ask myself if I was taking ownership of the situation, if I was solving the solvable problems in my life. And doing a thorough analysis of that, I wasn't. And then I also had to get the courage of removing the ego, because this is very ego prone, because it's like, they're bad, I'm good, forget them. And then you go down this rabbit hole of immaturity. It's like when you were a child and there was a toy that you wanted or something specific that you wanted, but instead of finding out a way of negotiating and implementing emotional intelligence, which we lack as children and we should develop as adults, and a lot of people don't, we start to get upset with others. We start getting mad, saying it's not fair. But the truth is life isn't fair. And if you do not face the malevolence in your life and the spitefulness and the problems and the things that you can solve and the things that you can't, that you should be solving on a regular basis, and it's a struggle. It's a struggle. I'm not perfect. I'll never be perfect. No one will ever be perfect, but it's very important to fight that malevolence and that that downtrodden piece of evil that can drag you down so far into the depths that you look up and in 10 years you're like, who is this person? Who is this guy? That is not who I wanted to be. That is not the legacy that you wanted to leave behind. So here's how this ties to leadership. So as a leader, I think it's very important for us, and as a parent, you're a leader as well. As a brother, as a mother, as an auntie, you're a leader as well. So some things that I've done is I start asking myself, what am I doing to make action better and or worse? It ties into my troops. So before blaming the troops about not taking care of their issues or their solutions or not getting things done on time, I'm like, as a leader, what can I do? In the military, we have, I think I've talked about this in other podcasts, we have the 1/3, 2/3 rules. So I have to ask myself as a leader, am I communicating on time? Am I putting out the right message? Do they understand the commander's intent? Do they understand information that I need to provide them critical feedback? Do they understand what we're looking for on the battlefield? Do they understand the threats in the area? Like I'm a chemical officer, so I'm like, do they have the books and the knowledge base? Am I providing them valuable instruction on classes and courses to increase their proficiency in conducting their daily tasks? So I have to take that in as a leader and like, hey, am I doing what I need to do as a parent, as a dad? It's kind of hard doing a realistic assessment because my daughter came not at the most opportune financial time for me. So I had to do a realistic assessment like, bro, you need to go make some more money. You need to pay off debt. You need to do this. You need to do that. And for years and years, I could bumble about it and be like, okay, well, they don't need no more child support. And then I got to a point where I was like, you know what? I'm not going to blame the system. I'm not going to blame anybody else. I'm going to take responsibility for this situation. I want them to have more child support because if they have more child support, that means I'm making more financially. And that's just for the child that I have. I don't really plan on having anytime soon. Maybe later in the future when I'm a lot more financially stable. But the goal became not to complain or whine, but the goal became to create a solution, create a environment where my daughter could thrive and grow and go to swim lessons and do all these things. And once I started looking at those and taking it from it's not about me, it's about her, it's about my future, it's about my legacy, then things started to change. But you have to take that ownership in that situation. When it comes down to relationships, it could be friendships, it could be dating. You have to ask yourself, am I adding enough value to this person's life before I speak on their problems, before I give them feedback that may be even unwanted? And is that feedback even necessary? You have to know the person. You have to know who they are before you start speaking on things that you have no clue of. Rich, poor, whatever. We don't really know their situations, but social media has given people a platform where they can judge anybody without having all the variables, without saying, these things don't sound right. But then you dive down to ego. Now you start casting judgment on others. Now the rich are bad, or the poor are good, and this person's bad, or the poor are bad. You got a bunch of different people pointing fingers at each other, but they don't know the facts. They don't know that these millionaires and billionaires fund these communities and keep them running. But it's easy to go down that pathway of malevolence when we're not sparking positive change in our own lives, because we blame everybody else for our results instead of taking personal responsibility of our own results. I'm not getting up on time. I'm not going to work. I show up late. I leave late. I'm not, I'm wasting too much time with stinking thinking and complaining with other people at work instead of going out and doing my best to get the job done. You have to ask those questions. And the more we ask those questions, the more we can develop ourselves. And then it comes down to self. Am I making my problems better or worse? Is the situation going to be better or worse by me complaining? No, I need to take action. And so what I've started to try to do is, like, on my off days, I do a reset day. So I'm like, okay, well, my room's at disarray because I worked real hard. Okay, I could easily be like, I worked real hard. I need to chill on these next couple days. But I'm like, in order to feed the beast, maybe I don't lift as heavy tomorrow, or I take tomorrow off, balance that out with my workout the next day, or, and do my laundry. and clean up the house and do the dishes and all these things that are going to help me have a good week, so that way I can stay out of that place of bitterness and getting mad at the world because if the house is not clean and the bed is not made and the things and you didn't do your laundry, it inhibits your work week. And then inhibiting your work week is like, oh, I'm tired, I can't find anything. So you're trying to find clean clothes in the morning instead of, oh, I can get up at this time and I've got freedom because I don't have all these tasks in front of me. I'm solving the problems now because it's going to snow outside. It's going to be icy. There's going to be an issue with the weather. Packages, you might get with FedEx, I might get an overwhelming amount of packages, but in order to face those and to reduce the bitterness of me getting pissed off because I've got to be out a little bit longer, or this is too much, how about I get in early? How about I stop blaming the loaders? How about I get in there and I sort my truck and figure those things out and look at the route prior to? How about I get in an hour early so that way I can see the pathway instead of blaming others because I didn't get done on time or because I'm upset because it's cold and I've got a date and it looks like I'm not going to make it? How about we put the social media down? How about we put the phone down? How about we put the technology down and we focus on the goal? We focus on the first box. In your life, you have to get to a point where you focus on the first box, because it starts with the first box. You get that one off, you get the next one off, you get the next one off, and oh yeah, eventually you get to rolling where you like, okay, I know all the streets. And then once you know all the streets, you're like, okay, so now I know that I can lift these boxes. Now I know that I know all the streets. Now I know getting in on time is going to help me be successful. How can I reorchestrate? And then those great things just start to compile. And you go from, it's like the iceberg, right? With an iceberg, there's way more underneath it, underneath the ocean surface than there is up top, right? So you start to flip that iceberg. So the bottom of the iceberg becomes all of the good in your life and all the great things are going to happen because you're facing your problems. You're staying away from resentment. You're putting your ego aside and saying, hey, I can make this situation better through a little bit of conversation, and not just conversation, meaningful conversation. Am I adding value to the situation into my life? Is how you stay out of this place of malevolence. And the truth is ignorance is okay, but knowing what you should do and not doing it is not. It's like, it puts you in a place of, I'll teach them by being mean or unkind because I'm pissed off because I can't solve my own problems. That's kind of the state of America. There's kind of a state of bitter people on the left and the right. I can't solve my problems, so let me focus on this problem and then talk about things that I don't really mean and that I don't really know because I have rich and poor friends, right? So I'm like, oh, well, they need less. This person needs more, instead of solving my problems, which will eliminate a lot of issues, because a lot of times we focus on the macro when it's the micro that means everything. The micro creates the macro situation. It's the small steps in the process that are going to help you turn those things around. And I daily and monthly and weekly have to reflect and spark that change and think about, man, this is my problem. I need to handle this before inviting anybody else into this problem. And if I don't speak up about a problem, then that's my problem as well, because I decided not to speak up. I decided not to say anything. And by speaking up and saying something and moving forward, it helps you reset yourself, because you're always going to have issues where you fall down and you get bitter and you might fall into malevolence. But the worst part about malevolence is it can take you into a dark place where you eventually turn into a mass shooter and all these other situations and serial killers and documentaries. I watch documentaries on like serial killers and just life in general and how things work and how a person became this person. I even watch a lot of positive documentaries as well, but it intrigues me to see why people do what they do. And a lot of time, and majority of the time, when it comes to evil and people hurting other people, it's because of malevolence. It's because of bitterness. There's a reason why, as an adult, I don't go back to the hood, and I don't after I made it out, I don't go back, because there's a lot of bitterness there. A lot of people are pissed off, and a lot of people didn't have the same shots, and a lot of people did have the same shots. But it's not about what you had; it's about what you do with what you have now. I think it's amazing to see, soldiers that were special forces and did all these awesome and amazing things. But a lot of times they can come to units that are undeveloped and just be the king of greatness, but they didn't add any value or greatness to that next unit. So are they really, we have to do a realistic assessment. Is having that Green Beret or whoever had that experience actually a positive thing for the troops in the unit if they're not adding value to the unit? And that person has to do an assessment of, hey, this is the line. Like, this is it. This is all I have to do. But a lot of times we go down that route, and then charisma and things and all those things. It was like, dude, there's no value here. You're not adding any value. You're not doing your job well. You have all these accolades and they're amazing. We have to, as leaders, we have to get to the point where we're like, okay, are my accolades getting into the way of developing and helping others? And if they are, we need to make that change. And so it's just this a lot of this ties to ego, the evil ego in you. And the ego, the worst type of ego, it can draw you into a dark place because it can escalate and know no bounds. That's where tyrant leaders and tyrant people go on tirades and they just make everybody's life worse. There was a book on negotiation tactics that I've been reading recently, and they were talking about how a boss literally was like, oh, they didn't recognize me. This person didn't recognize me after they had basically kicked the person out of the department. It's like, and they were just like putting themselves on a pedestal instead of saying, okay, maybe that person just had a long day. A lot of times I have to check myself. I check myself all the time. Like, is this what I think it is, or is this just what I want to think it is? Because my ego can't handle the actual situation and what's going on here. Because I'm not effectively communicating because I just want to ball up because there's a lot of stress and there's a lot of 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 variables that I can't control on the table. So instead of solving the things I can solve, I'm sitting there being, a worry wart about the things that I can't change, but moving on. And here's a great part. Once you start searching for your own inner peace to make the changes that you have, the world will feel a lot less heavier around you. It'll feel like a burden is lifted up off of you. But it's hard to face we're not doing it right, or we're doing something wrong, or we're not getting there, or we're not making it happen. That is the hardest thing to face. So this week, I encourage you to embody rule number 6 and going forward. Set your house in order before criticizing others. I appreciate Jordan Peterson for coming up with this rule because it makes you face the things that you don't want to face. What am I doing to make this right? And what am I not saying to right the ship and to turn it around and make this, the best possible life that I can possibly make it? To where at the end of the day, when I'm gone, it's gone. I don't feel any type of way about it. So, this is Hungry Millennial. I appreciate you guys. Thank you for tuning in. Tune in next week for rule number 7. Thank you. And if you have any questions or you have any feedback or anything, you can reach me at PROPRAG20@gmail.com. That is ProPrag20@gmail.com. Thank you guys.